Hi folks, this is Dr. Denboer. I'm a board certified and licensed naturopathic doctor as well as chiropractic physician. Thanks for watching this video. This is an incredibly important topic. It's going to affect you to the core in many ways. Whatever topic you're talking about, diabesity is it. Sit back, enjoy, watch, learn, and at the end I'll have a few more closing comments. Thanks for watching. Let's start with functional medicine. As a model and as a new paradigm, it has rocked conventional medicine. Folks, this used to be called alternative medicine, sometimes even holistic medicine. Kind of the granola, 1960s hippies kind of medicine, right? Birkenstocks, long hair, dreadlocks. Those days are gone. It has been grouped together in functional medicine. In Europe, this is known as systems biology, and I almost prefer that name a little bit better because it is the study of systems rather than individual parts. So the systems are basically your detoxification systems, your reproductive system, your lymphatic system. I can go on and on. Gastrointestinal system. You can read right with me over there. And what we are doing as functional medicine practitioners, we have a responsibility to become a specialist in each one of those systems and incorporate together for you those systems, because things do not work in isolation. To practice isolationist medicine is extremely useful in emergency type care. In other words, heart attack, it's all about keep that heart beating, keep him breathing, right? You hijack the patient, you put into full force everything that modern conventional medicine has to offer. When it comes to chronic disease, now we're talking a different story. Let's say there's chronic cardiovascular issues. You can't use those same conventional means on a chronic condition. You're not going to paddle a guy and give him oxygen. I mean, it just doesn't work, correct? What you need to do is, why is this person having cardiovascular issues? Is it a hormonal issue? For example, is there a high stress situation, such as overtraining athletically, or eating the wrong foods, or emotional stress, or hormonal stress that could be affecting the adrenals, which then can create leaky gut syndrome, where all of a sudden the patient becomes reactive to food. And let's say this patient's gut is now inflamed due to that high stress and eats a high-fat meal, which opens up the leakiness of the gut even further. These high fats and undigested food particles enter into the bloodstream, causes a huge inflammatory storm, which can then dislodge an existing plaque within the artery, and the debris, if it goes downstream, forms a clot, and there's your event. All of a sudden, you can see how we pulled in hormonal, gut health, food, right, all together. That is functional medicine. It's working on the whole being, the whole system. And that's what we're going to do tonight with diabetes and diabesity. Diabesity, what is this? This could be the single most, I would say the greatest danger to the United States, to Western civilization. It influences every aspect of chronic disease. And chronic disease is what's bankrupting this nation, bankrupting its productivity, and endangering the greatness of us as a nation. This is a huge topic. It touches virtually every single aspect of healthcare that comes into DBC. And all of us doctors have to cover this one in depth, and we spend a lot of time on this. I so remember that one of my mentors, about 25 years ago, was sitting in a group about this size. We were into functional medicine, and yes, most of the doctors were hippies. Long hair. I was maybe the only one with short hair. And Dr. Bland back then, and by the way, those seminars are thousands of doctors now. It's really heartening to see how that's just exploded. Every convention that we see, they can't find hotels big enough for this. But Dr. Bland was predicting back then that adult onset diabetes would be found in kids and that it would become this wave of inflammation that would envelop our nation. And I'm going, ooh, that's really going out there. But I respected him, as I do today, a great deal, so I made a note of it. Today, 1 of 3 kids is pre-diabetic or diabetic. I think the number might actually be higher from what I see coming into the doors here at DBC. And these kids, because they have organ reserve, they still have some resilience, don't yet show all the signs of diabesity. Not all of them have the typical apple gut or the mood changes or the hormone changes. But when you really check them, the precursors of diabetes or actual diabetes is already there. We are setting the new generation up for incredible issues not that far down the line. And you can see that here, how that obesity is just sweeping us. The latest numbers we have is 2010. Could not find more recent numbers, don't know why. But you can see that more than 1/3 of us here in Michigan and most of the nation now is into obese territory. You can see how diabetes is exploding simultaneously from the year 2004 to 2010. In the last 4 or 5 years, we don't have those exact numbers. Those numbers have increased exponentially. The world is not that far behind us. Mexico is dealing with an even greater crisis regarding this. Other countries, Cambodia, Vietnam, China, all the same issue. How do we measure diabesity? Abdominal obesity is the easy one. Okay? If you see a patient or an individual that gathers their fat, mostly here, we call that the apple-shaped gut, that's about 90% accurate. However, just because you don't have that does not exclude you. I have seen a tremendous amount of patients who've totally deceived me by looks alone. It's just that if you do have it, the chances are very high that you are into diabesity. You can check their blood sugar. And folks, the existing numbers that we have by the American Diabetic Association really are a joke. That's an end point. So a patient can come in, well, my doctor says I'm fine, I'm at 115, and I about croak. I blow a fuse every time. Because that is not fine. It's nowhere near fine. Anytime your blood sugar goes above 94, damage is occurring. We just diagnosed a patient with diabetic neuropathy. We measured her blood sugar levels to be in the 90s, and she's there consistently. Yet she has diabetic neuropathy, even though she does not fit into the typical category of diabetes. How does that happen? It's because she was already compromised on other fronts, inflammation-wise. A lot of osteoarthritis, some gut issues, and yes, some emotional stress, upregulating all the inflammatory markers. So all it needed was that borderline sugar, and bingo, damage was already occurring in the neurological system. Diabetic neuropathy at supposed almost ideal sugar levels. You really need to be fasting around 84. That's the ideal. Hemoglobin A1C is another really interesting marker. It measures what's happened over the last 90 days within your blood system, and what you're really measuring is glycosylation, I know that's a big word, which means damage or rust, to proteins. That's really what you're seeing. And that's very measurable because proteins don't just come and go. They're there for about 90 days, and you are measuring damage. So here you can't escape because sometimes a patient can come in perfect sugar levels. But the hemoglobin A1C is a little bit high. Now I know that we are changing proteins to become foreign proteins. And folks, when you get enough of those foreign proteins in your blood, all of a sudden the immune system goes, uh-oh, There's a lot of foreigners floating around here. I'm going to start reacting against you guys. And I create an immune reaction that is very inflammatory. And this is how autoimmune disease is born. Whether it's Crohn's, whether it's Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's, by the way, in my home country, is considered diabetes of the brain. Okay, this is how MS can be triggered. This, I can go on and on and on. Yeah? You have an increase in stroke risk, systemic inflammation like osteoarthritis. So a lot of these people, when they get up in the morning, everything just feels sore, ouch, ooch, and it takes a little while to get going. It could be as simple as just your blood sugar is being dysregulated. No, you're not getting old. You should not have to be like that. This means that you are inflamed. And high blood pressure, it is the #1 cause for high blood pressure. Oftentimes you see sugar, cholesterol issues such as high triglycerides, which is a sign of high insulin levels, high LDL, which is an inflammatory marker, and HDL, the nice friendly guy, is often very low. Many ways to treat diabesity. Let's go into the regulation of your hormones first. Hormones affects diabetes or pre-diabetes incredibly. Any woman will tell you who's in their 50s or near 50s what an incredible challenge all of a sudden it has become to stay where they want to be weight-wise. It is unreal. I tell them it's like walking through mud or trying to swim against a really strong current. Because it is tough. You're going through hormone changes. Thyroid issues affects more than 50% of women, and it's usually undiagnosed perimenopausally. Thyroid is part of the master regulating circuit for all hormones. This is pretty important, folks. Remember one other thing that a lot of people forget about. Insulin is a hormone. Insulin affects other hormones. All hormones work together as a choir. You have one off tune, it'll throw the others off tune. And this goes all different directions. But between the thyroid and adrenals, because our adrenals are really stressed in today's society. I was just doing a report of findings on one of my patients today, and I told him, I said, I don't mind you going 90 miles an hour, but you gotta have those islands of peace to let your adrenals come down, otherwise it will do bad things to you. And he said, such as? I said, just on a hunch, maybe you should sit down when you eat. He goes, yeah, you're right, I do. Never, when I go to the car, I'm eating in the car, lunch, I'm always checking my computer and I'm standing up while I'm still eating. Join 80% of America, right? And did you know 40% of our meals are done in cars here in the United States? It's unbelievable. And to me, a meal is an island of peace. It's a time of togetherness, communion, even if it's with nature, right? It's a time to come down, to enjoy, to savor. It makes such an incredible difference for all of health. So regulating your hormones is absolutely critical. And reducing inflammation ties right into that, because when your adrenals, hormones, are upregulated, so is inflammation. Inflammation goes up, and it will burn out your insulin production. The beta cells in your pancreas can only handle so much inflammation. It's a real sensitive creature. It will burn out. Inflammation also affects insulin receptors on the cellular site. So how insulin acts on your cells is then affected, and cells start turning a deaf ear towards insulin. That is called insulin resistance. And when you get insulin resistance, insulin no longer works like it's supposed to, and the body goes, uh-oh, sugar's rising, we gotta do something, pump out more insulin. Pump out more insulin. Finally, the cells start responding to it at the cost of very high insulin levels, which again is really pro-inflammatory. And when it's pro-inflammatory, now you're starting to affect your gut wall, the digestive one right at the bottom there. And the gut wall becomes more leaky, less selective for foods. It lets in foods into your bloodstream undigested. It lets in an uncontrolled flood of sugars into your bloodstream, further stressing your whole body. All your coping mechanisms are on high alert. And guess what? We can do this for a short time. For a short time. Huge consequences are paid. And yes, we have wonderful specialists. Cardiovascular surgeons, where we have the orthopedic surgeons, we have the renal specialists, the eye specialists that can deal with all the damage that has occurred. But shouldn't we be working on it on the front end and not on the back end? We need to work on the back end at times, but please, let's try to prevent that. And that's how we do that. We need to also maximize our nutrition. Nutrition is really, really key to this. But most of the time we get a little frustrated with nutritionists working within the conventional medicine model, because honestly they are working on a model that's based in the 1950s and 60s. Counting calories and not too much sugar, maybe use Nutriceuticals, artificial sweeteners instead. I'm not even going to go there, by the way. Yeah. And it's all about just food and how much sugar goes into your system. And as you can tell, this is a way more complex system than that. But still, food really, really matters. Food is information to your body. So you have to eat quality carbohydrates in moderation. Patient this morning. Doc, I'm getting fat. Okay. First question I ask, what do you eat for breakfast? It's usually the easiest one to pick on, by the way. Well, and she was proud of this one. I take my blender, fill it up with spinach, and she says organic spinach, throw frozen blueberries in it, I put rice milk in it, and then whatever other fruit I have. It could be a frozen banana, it could be, and she mentioned this morning was a banana. I says, wow, you get an A1 for density in nutrients. And you get a failing score for glycemic index. Glycemic index is how fast your sugar gets released from that. He says, is that why I get super hungry an hour and a half later? I go, mm-hmm. He says, is that related to this? Mm-hmm. Because she is getting all kinds of sugars, natural sugars I know, but they're still sugars, which is starting to affect her in a pre-diabetic way and in an inflammatory way. Still better than grinding up a bunch of Snickers bars or something like that. I get that, yeah? But I told her, just add a plant-based protein to this. Vega is what I usually use. Add some oil to it, avocado oil, olive oil, coconut oil, an avocado, and bingo, all of a sudden now you have a much more complete, balanced meal with all those phytonutrients. So watch those carbohydrates, because even the healthy carbohydrates, too much, it's going to hurt you. It's going to hurt you. So studies have been done that to counter our stressed adrenals, it is usually smart to emphasize proteins first thing in the morning and emphasize the complex carbohydrates more at night. It seems to follow the groove that our adrenals are comfortable with, because the adrenals secrete something called glucocorticoids, which means sugar regulating hormones. It is a sugar regulator. It's not just sex hormones, it's not just adrenaline, right? It regulates sugar as well. So hit it with the quality carbs later in the day. You'll notice that you sleep better, you lose weight, you're brighter in the morning, and hit it with the proteins more first thing in the morning. Avoid food sensitivities and allergens also. Well, what does that have to do with sugars? Well, it causes an inflammation, remember? And that affects the gut wall and stresses the adrenals. And there goes the whole system. So if you happen to be allergic to, say, eggs, I'm just choosing something, and you have 2 eggs that morning with your smoothie, and no matter how hard you try, 10 o'clock, right, you get that sugar drop. That's because, yes, in theory what you did was right, but for you as a unique individual, it was not right. And therefore, this is where the art of medicine, the practice of medicine comes in. You have to be your own detective at times. What works for one and is in theory correct might not work for you. So you got to play with this. Pay attention. What happens here and output and how you look and how you feel is how you figure this out. Big American problem. Chew food well, eat slowly. Amazing what an impact that has on sugar levels. It affects digestion. Digestion affects sugar levels and inflammation. And let's get rid of some of those toxins. We are so overloaded even when we do our best, right? I saw them out there spraying out there today. There's another toxin to contend with, right? We're all exposed. There's some foods, there's no way you can eat everything organic. It's virtually impossible. You will be exposed to some Roundup on food here or there. And there's plastics floating in our water. There's all kinds of chemicals in our air. It's depressing to talk about it, so I'm not going to hit it too much. But reduce the toxicity as much as you can. But I do want to emphasize that broccoli that's been sprayed is still a whole lot better than packaged food. I really want to emphasize that. Okay. And eat balanced meal, right? That's the proteins, carbs, and fats. So let's get into that toxicity just a little bit, because this is a really important one. Vietnam and Cambodia right now are in the midst of an incredible crisis of diabetes, even though the people are still working in the fields, they're living the same lifestyle as 200 years ago, they're skinny, and yet they have diabetes like there's no tomorrow, because of a relative to Roundup called Agent Orange. It's found in their groundwater, residues from the Vietnam War, obviously. It is affecting the livers immensely, and the liver affects digestion as well as how we regulate sugar, because that's another sugar regulating organ. It stores something called glycogen, and glycogen can be reconverted to sugar at will whenever we need it. Liver stress doesn't do that, there goes your sugar, and they are having a crisis worse than ours. China is not far behind them because of the incredible pollution that we have in China. Most of the time you can't see further than a mile, and that's being optimistic. Mercury and lead is very prevalent there, and they are not very judicious about the use of pesticides. None of our nutraceuticals, none, would ever come from that area of the world, because even if it's grown organically, it's very contaminated. Another way to combat diabesity is to enhance your metabolism. And how do you do that? Exercise. You can't escape it, folks. We are a sit-down society. I was going through the airport a few weeks ago, and I was just looking around me, and we all look like a little bit like dummies. You know, they're walking on the walkways, blah, 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 and then you go blah, up the stairs, and then there's the elevator, blah, right? It's if you want to, you don't have to move. If you want to. I purposely avoid those things. I'm the crazy maniac running up the stairs with my suitcase, right? It's important to try to avoid those traps, because they are out to make you ill. Avoid the convenience. There's little things you can do. Park your car far away. I always get a kick out of these, like right at MVP. You drive past and kind of look, you see all the cars congregated right around the entrance so they can go inside and walk. But what is that? Right? It just doesn't make sense. Park your car out there, get some fresh air, and then do some, whatever. So, enhance energy metabolism. The best way, the most effective way time-wise, because no one's ever told me, Doc, I got too much time, I want you to design something for me, it's not going to happen. The best bang for your buck and time is interval training. Interval training you can do in just 10 or 15 minutes. And that means doing anything you're doing, accelerate it to a higher speed for 20 seconds, come back, do that about 4 times to maximum 7 times in 15 minutes. If you want to do more, be my guest. But that's where we have research shows a maximum benefit for the minimum amount of time. We have studies showing it benefits in just 3 minutes even. Okay, but 15 minutes seems to be a really good one. And then on the other day that you're not doing that, you lift weights, and it's very short, maybe 10 minutes worth. 2 sets of 10, go through a complete cycle of the body. Bingo, done. During interval training, you secrete growth hormone. During weightlifting, you will then build 3 times as fast because you've secreted growth hormone. This is smart exercise. If you have more time on weekends, you want to do something relaxing, like go for a long walk, hike, bike ride, play tennis, whatever. Great, that's just icing on the cake. Bad choice of words. Yeah? All right. Some of the nutraceuticals that we use for this. Ultrameal 360 and Glycemics 360 are the stars of the show, have a tremendous amount of research behind it because it not only helps insulin production, it also helps get rid of the insulin resistance. And in a matter of 6 weeks of time where you have lifestyle changes and using this, this can benefit blood pressure, cholesterol, inflammation markers, artery health, the osteoarthritis, autoimmune disease in ways that are way beyond what pharmaceuticals can do. We have entered the age that nutraceuticals outperforms drugs. Drugs are for management of symptoms at this point. Nutraceuticals and food and lifestyle can get you well. Give yourself the proper food and your body will know what to do with it and get itself well. And this is food-based. And it's very humbling, by the way, as physicians to see that. Because no, we didn't clear those arteries or got rid of that arthritis. It's the body's wisdom that was created from within that knew what to do if you just give it the right fuel. This is how we accelerate process, because 6 weeks of this can outperform 3 years of the Mediterranean diet. And we have the studies to prove that. So, ultra-glucose controls, for those a little further along into the diabetes itself. It is a new product and it's designed to, it is also a protein shake that's designed to level out the sugar release perfectly over a period of about 4 hours. It's pretty amazing to watch patients' insulin dependence or metformin, if they were on that. They have to drop that dramatically with ultra-glucose control. And so that's for patients who already are in trouble. Their pancreas has petered out, and we can really do a good job diminishing their dependence on the pharmaceuticals. Insugenes and Insubalance works on both the receptors and production of the insulin, and is more of a maintenance product. And glycogenics is a B complex that also supports that whole system. Powders aren't always convenient, so we use Ultrameal bars. Also has the same effect as the Ultrameal. Okay, indirect support. Now this doesn't mean it's less important, but these systems work together. So a great probiotic to support gut health and restore gut health. We are starting to figure out finally that some people, when everything is the same, hormones are the same, inflammation is the same, calorie is the same, everything's the same, how they manage stress is the same, this group still gains weight. What gives? It's their microbiome. When they have different bacteria in their gut, it creates weight gain. It is incredible. We figured this out with something called fecal transfers, where we did a fecal transfer, which is finally starting to gain traction in this country for intestinal diseases, where you get bacteria from one person, put it in another person, and all of a sudden they start losing weight like mad. Nothing else changed. The only thing that changed was their bacteria. So, bacteria can be absolutely critical. A specific omega-7 fish oil, this one is unique, this is not ordinary. It lowers triglycerides and insulin levels on average of 40% with no lifestyle changes in just 4 weeks. Cleveland Heart Clinic has done the research on it, and they found, by the way, oh, guess what? Arteries clear out as well. Fascinating. Multiple, that does the detoxification, adrenal support, and detox. How about the mind? Might that affect sugar levels? Very much so. Downstairs here, about 15 years ago, we had a group of psychiatrists and psychologists, a counseling center. I got a panicked call one day. And this was a psychiatrist. He says, is there any way we can keep kids out of your office today? I'm going, whoa, that's going to be difficult. He said, well, I've got this patient coming in with a multiple personality disorder. And every time here's the pitter patter of feet, that rhythmic sound might trigger him to go into another personality. Now, personality disorders like that are not real common, by the way. So they receive great attention and they're well documented. But every time I say multiple personality disorder, okay, that's really interesting. So I asked him, well, what happens then? He said he will change personality and he'll stay there for days. And the trouble is, when he switches to that other personality, he becomes a full-blown diabetic immediately and insulin dependent. The only thing that changed was his state of mind. The brain is that powerful. What can it do for you? What are you doing to harness it? Are you creating those islands of peace? Are you feeding it with good food? Because when you feed it good food, the brain responds and has an impact on the rest of your body. But it also will allow you to do good for others, doesn't it? This whole diabesity thing is not just what happens here. Good food equals good body health and allows you to do good, which has a major impact on us as a society. So every action we take has a reaction. And I think what we do with our life is really, really a big responsibility we have for ourselves and our society. So thanks for allowing me to share this. What we're going to do is cover a bunch of questions. I wanted the presentation to be fairly short. I wanted to say, okay, what about this or this or this? And allow you to just pester me with as many questions as you want. We have our wonderful doctors in the back too. Dr. Kate, Dr. Stacy. We're all versed in all these different specialties, and I'm confident, hopefully, to be able to answer whatever you throw at us. So, go for it. Before I jump into that though, Dr. Kate, you're going to be doing decoding food labels. It's something we've wanted to do for a long time, and I really look forward to that one, because I am stuck sometimes reading those labels. And what does it really mean? So, nah, not gonna buy that, but because I don't know what it means. So we're gonna go into that. We're gonna go into definite ingredients to avoid. Definitely avoid this one. And what are hidden ingredients? How do they hide things? Make it sound natural, but they're not. It's really getting sneaky and mean out there.
Yeah,
so
we're gonna get to hear from the health coaches a bit too.
Oh, awesome.
So.
Yeah, and by the way, the health coaches are really cool. I'm so proud of our team. So Jamie and Don, what they've done with the help of us doctors, we've worked together with patients and have meetings, and we've set up programs regarding diabesity, whether it's boot camp, which is very radical, to lifestyle therapy, to something called Nourish, which is a little bit more neurological focus for the Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, MS patients. And we can really affect the brain with Nourish. And so there's all these different programs to address different concerns for patients, because a lot of them are lost. What do I do? If you are doing this on your own, I wanted to mention this in the seminar actually, a good starting point is always the Mediterranean diet. There's so many goofy diets out there. Mediterranean diet is a very excellent starting point. It has by far the most data behind it. And then you can start playing on your own. Do I do a little better with more vegetables? Or am I one of those weird ones that needs a little more protein than usual? Or how about if I go into the more fat? But start at the Mediterranean diet and then travel from there. And you will figure out where you do the best. And all you have to do is, how does my waist feel? How's my brain doing? How's my energy? How well am I sleeping? Right? What are my hormones doing? And yes, I told you about those markers, which you could find again in those blogs that we have published. Hi folks, this is Dr. Denboer again. Thanks so much for watching. And I hope you got something out of this. There's a couple of key points I really want you to get out of this. Give your body the right food and it will do the right thing. Trust it. So start with that key foundation. Use God's pharmacy. Use real food. The surrounding circumstances around food is incredibly important. I hope you got that. the state of your stress, your adrenals, what it's doing affects how leaky your gut is, how inflamed you are. Are you getting enough sleep? That simple factoid can change a life. How about exercise? You use it for relaxation purposes, even meditative purposes. Get yourself centered. But yes, it also creates an anti-inflammatory state, so you are less reactive to your food. So there's all these little factoids surrounding food. It's not only about food, folks, but it's what we do around it. Like standing up while eating. No, not allowed. Food is a social thing. It should be surrounded by people if possible. And if not, at least be a meditative exercise. So let's go ahead, enjoy food as it was truly intended. Let it nourish us. Not just be a sustenance, but it's got to nourish and rebuild and recharge us. Go out there, change your life so you can change other lives. Thanks for watching.